We may now be just 24 hours away from the destruction of a political party as we know it. Donald Trump's very hostile takeover of the Republican Party could be complete tomorrow night. Reince Priebus, the chairman of the Republican National Committee, could, by this hour tomorrow night, be the chairman of nothing. He will still have his office, he will still have his stationery, he will still have his title, but he may be in charge of nothing. The Republican Party will stand for nothing. As Donald Trump has said, everything is negotiable, and so the Republican presidential candidate's position will be whatever passes through his mind while his mouth is moving at any given moment. The Republican Party may now be only hours away from what political parties were invented to prevent: chaos. Today, Donald Trump dealt with the chaos and violence that has broken out at his campaign events the way he deals with everything: by lying about it.
The press is now calling this, saying, oh, but there's such violence. No violence. No, you know how many people have been hurt at our rallies? I think like basically none, other than I guess maybe somebody got hit once or something. But there's no violence. There's no violence. There's love fest. These are love fests.
Whenever Donald Trump is asked about the Trump supporter who got arrested at his rally for punching a peaceful protester, everyone saw that on video. Donald Trump, despite knowing that everyone has seen it on video, Donald Trump always lies about it, like this.
He starts swinging and hitting people. When the people hit back, which was very appropriate, he was a big, strong guy, they sat there, they hit back. The next day it was, Trump's people are rough. It's terrible. It's terrible.
Donald Trump continues to get away with this kind of lying because the news media has not yet figured out how to deal with a pathological liar who will tell you what you did not see, even though you actually did see exactly that on video with your own eyes. News media has no idea how to deal with a candidate like that. Trump supporter Ben Carson continued that kind of lying today by saying that Trump supporters have absolutely no choice but to fight back.
If the protesters continue with their Alinskyite tactics, there is a real possibility of escalation because those who are the victims of them have two choices. They can submit to them and meekly just do whatever those protesters want them to do, or they can fight back. And if they decide to fight back, there could be an escalation.
In the world of Ben Carson, apparently, police do not exist. In that fake scenario that Ben Carson was describing, of course, the reasonable thing to do is to allow police and security officials to handle the situation. Just get out of the way. Let the pros handle it. But in Ben Carson's imaginary universe, Trump supporters have absolutely no choice but to fight back against these imaginary assaults on Trump supporters. The New York Times has pointed out that Trump's famous TV show line, "You're Fired," has turned into "Get 'em out" on the campaign trail, and the crowd loves it.
Get him out of here. Get him out of here. Get her out. Thank you. Get her out. Nearest exit. Always the nearest exit. You know, somebody wants to get on television, they stand up, they think they're going to be movie stars. They're not going to be movie stars. Don't worry about it. These people are crazy. They're crazy. Let me ask you, you know, I don't want to ruin somebody's life, but do we prosecute somebody like that or not? Do we?
Donald Trump came close to being prosecuted for that punch that was thrown on his behalf in North Carolina. Earlier today, the legal counsel for the Cumberland County Sheriff Department in North Carolina said that they were investigating Donald Trump's possible involvement in that incident. They said, quote, "We are continuing to look at the totality of these circumstances, including any additional charges against Mr. McGraw, including the potential of whether there was conduct on the part of Mr. Trump or the Trump campaign, which rose to the level of inciting a riot, and including the actions or inactions of our deputies." Tonight, the Sheriff's Department decided not to file charges against Donald Trump. President Obama's voice of reason is now competing with the most chaotic presidential campaign of the television age.
America is pretty darn great right now. America's making strides right now. America's better off than it was right now. What the folks who are running for office should be focused on is how we can make it even better. Not insults and schoolyard taunts and manufacturing facts. Not divisiveness along the lines of race or faith. Certainly not violence against other Americans or excluding them. We're a better country than that.
Joining us now, Howard Dean, former governor of Vermont and former DNC chairman. He's also an MSNBC political analyst. Also with us, Tom Davis, former congressman from Virginia, where he's the state chairman for John Kasich's presidential campaign, and April Ryan, White House correspondent and Washington bureau chief for American Urban Radio Networks. April, since we're all here in the Washington studio and you're at an undisclosed location, I want you to get a word in right away before we crowd. And that is to that final point of seeing President Obama out there this weekend. There he was this weekend trying to be heard amid all that chaos on the Republican side of the campaign. And there was a little glimpse in there of what this campaign might be like if President Obama was running for re-election in this campaign.
If he were running, but he can't. The bottom line is many African Americans feel that all of this right now that we're seeing, be it Donald Trump, any other person that's talking, this divisive rhetoric, it's a backlash because President Obama is president of the United States. We're seeing fire being thrown, gasoline being thrown on the fire right now because people are angry. And when people are angry, it's because their finances aren't right, they feel marginalized, they feel like they're disenfranchised. But when do you say when? How do you change the dynamic of a campaign from trying to forge something new and different and really work to unify the people? And when do you say when you go too far, when you are separating? And now, I mean, if President Obama were president, I don't even know if he, or not president, but if he were running for office, I don't even know if he could try to put the genie back in the bottle. We are now divided, and we are dividing every day. Every time Donald Trump speaks, there's more division. How do you bring that back together? What candidate can bring this country back together after we're seeing what we're seeing?
Let's listen to more about what the president had to say on Saturday about all this.
And our leaders, those who aspire to be our leaders, should be trying to bring us together and not turning us against one another, and speak out against violence and reject efforts to spread fear or turn us against one another. And if they refuse to do that, they don't deserve our support.
Howard Dean, he looks like an eager incumbent president. I mean eager about getting out there on the campaign trail for the Democratic nominee.
Yeah, he does. He's found his. This is actually what Barack Obama does best. He has a set of ideals for the country, and he's been a fantastic salesman. That's how he got his start, and that's how he got elected president twice.
Tom Davis, your party tomorrow night. On the verge of destruction, as I put it at this point. You're on the Kasich team. What are you hoping for? How at this point can Trump be stopped?
Well, first of all, he's only got 44% of the delegates elected so far. You need to keep him at that level. Tomorrow night, we think Kasich takes Ohio. We'll know more at this time tomorrow night. Not so sure about Florida. North Carolina is directly proportional voting. Illinois has a modified proportional. The key is to keep Trump's numbers down and get to a convention. You kind of have to gang tackle him until that point. For John Kasich, as this race moves north, I think he's going to find more favorability and more delegates.
Let's listen to something Paul Ryan said today about this situation on the rallies.
I think the candidates need to take responsibility for the environment at their events. There's never an excuse for promoting violence or even a culture that presupposes it. I think the candidates have an obligation to do everything they possibly can to prevent this from happening and to tamp down any temptation to get this out of control.
April Ryan, there's Paul Ryan, there's the Speaker of the House who Donald Trump, if president, is going to have to deal with, and talking about the front runner for his party's nomination, and once again going right at him and disagreeing. He went at him over the Muslim ban, said that'll never happen, and here he is going at him saying he thinks the candidates need to take responsibility for what happens at their rallies.
he also went after him with the KKK issue with David
Yes.
Duke. But we have yet to hear from Paul Ryan to say that if he is the nominee, he's not going to support him, because at this point he said he's not endorsing anyone as of yet, but he will support the nominee, and we are thinking that Donald Trump will be the nominee. But here's a bigger problem, and getting more so into the weeds when it comes to the Republican Party. The Republican Party had hoped that in the general election that the candidate who is the nominee would have to come to them for their data, for all their information, particularly when it comes to race, to grab more people from all communities. Well, if indeed the nominee is Donald Trump, we see it doesn't look like he needs to, because look at what happened in Nevada. He got a lot of votes in Nevada from the Hispanic community. So Donald Trump may not need to go to the Republican Party. And with that, at the general election, you have a monster that's getting worse. I mean, I don't even know the words to describe it.
Let's listen to what John McCain's biggest mistake, Sarah Palin, said today.
What we don't have time for is all that petty, punk-ass little thuggery stuff that's been going on with these quote-unquote protesters who are doing nothing but wasting your time and trying to take away your First Amendment rights, your rights to assemble peacefully, and the media being on the thug side. What the heck are you guys thinking, media? It doesn't make sense.
Tom, we thought that the Republican Party had suffered everything they had coming to them for the choice of Sarah Palin, meaning they lost the election. Sarah Palin did not help the McCain ticket. It turns out Sarah Palin is a haunting figure in this party, because there's Donald Trump, who is a less accomplished politician than Sarah Palin, who's now the front runner for this party.
Well, that's right. But I would just remember this. Republicans are at an all-time high in terms of numbers of state legislators, numbers of members of the House since 1929, number of governorships.
Because not all Republican governors quit in the middle of their term,
that's right,
like Sarah Palin.
Which is now no longer held by a Republican governor in Alaska. So the party itself is obviously, when you're a coalition, you have a lot of dissonant elements, and Trump has tapped into an element of the party and the country, I think, that has just been ignored by politicians and Republican leaders. And there's a huge resentment out there. He's tapped into it. Now, I don't think it's enough to get him a majority. I don't think he understands what swing voters are in a presidential election, where swing voters really matter. But he's certainly tapped into a base out there that finds some resonance in what he's saying.
We're going to have to break it there. Tom Davis and April Ryan, thank you both for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.